What if you were to listen to an internationally acclaimed, multi-award-winning illusionist, and he had something far more to say than, "Watch this trick"? Rick Thomas is that performer, ready to go far beyond his magic and far beyond your imagination, as he shares secrets regarding our dreams. Dreams that can become reality. The future belongs to those who believe in the strength of their dreams. Dreams pass into the reality of action. From the action stems the dream again. And this interdependence produces the highest form of living. Join Rick and his co-host, award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo, for Nothing Happens Until You Dream. Indulge your mind and take a journey never to be forgotten. A journey connecting all of our dreams as we chase them together.
The title of this chapter, Rick, chapter 27 in your book, The Tiger Whisker, is a sad goodbye. Goodbyes are often sad. I mean, if you sit down and think about all the goodbyes you've made in your life, I mean, sometimes it's just goodbye, I'll see you tomorrow. That's okay. But sometimes it's goodbye to something huge.
Yeah.
Those are tough.
It's really tough. But I, early in my career, realized that as far as the entertainment industry goes, that when you say goodbye to somebody, you may see them again, but you're not going to run out and try to find them. Life goes on. People, they get different gigs, and you kind of get far removed from each other.
Right. Right.
For example, on the cruise ships, when the dancers would all say goodbye to each other when they're going to another cruise ship, it's, I'll stay in touch with you and I'll write you and we'll do. I'm like, and they say, Rick, why aren't you saying goodbye to anybody? I said, because no one stays in touch with anybody.
No. How many times have I said that? Oh, we'll get together and send me an email. No, it never happens. It never happens till you hit like a reunion or something, and then everybody comes together and said, we haven't talked in so long. And it's like, well, what was stopping you? Right? You just don't.
However, when you've given something 20 years of your life, everything that you've got, your time, your efforts, your life savings, everything that you have, and you say goodbye to it, that was tough.
We're talking about tigers.
Yep.
Yeah.
People ask me now if I would perform or present tigers again. My answer to them unequivocally is no. There was a time and place in my life when it was right for me, that it was something that fit in my life at that time. But when I look back on it, I would never change it. I appreciate what I learned. I appreciate the opportunities that were given to me, but I wouldn't do it again. I just wouldn't do it again.
People have asked me when they know that I know you and they know that we do the podcast, and they say, did you ever meet the tigers? And yes, I did. Mm-hmm. I've been asked, did you love your tigers? And I think what they're equating is that they love their cat.
Well, let's just put it this way. I loved the tigers more than they loved me. Mm-hmm. And just with everyone with their own cat, I ask people, how many of you have a cat and that cat late at night for no reason comes up and smacks you in the head or bites you in the toe?
Gee, how many
for
times?
No reason.
Yeah.
No reason.
It's a cat thing.
That is not love. That is that the cat wants something from you. Mm-hmm. You're going to go give that cat something, and all of a sudden that cat is going to show appreciation for a few moments and then move on with their life. Mm-hmm. They're happy as long as you're feeding them. I have a line that I love saying constantly. I have friends as long as I'm buying. And
I get that.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing with the tigers, right? I have all 10 fingers as long as I'm feeding the tigers.
I get that.
It's not a joke. It's not a joke. See, you love your animals, but your animals, they don't need you. In all honesty, they don't need you to survive.
Mm-hmm. No, they don't.
They don't. Mm-mm. We think they do, and I know you have a massive love for your animals and what you give to them, and I as well. And my tigers, why I say financially as well as yes, when I give my life savings to this, that was a big deal. That was only part of it. I still had a passion for working with these exotic animals. Mm-hmm. I had an appreciation for their beauty and what they were in my life. So you add it all up, And it was a big deal for me to say goodbye.
But I think people need to also understand the chunk of your life that they took, because people see you on stage and you've got the beautiful tigers and you do your show, and maybe you do 2 shows in a night back then.
2 shows. Yes.
2 shows. Okay. And then everybody thinks you take the tigers to somewhere where you're performing and say, "Good night, tigers," and you go home and you don't see the tigers again until you come to the show the next night. And you're preparing to go on stage, and there we go. And that is not the case. These tigers are like this 24/7 appendage with you.
Yes.
Yeah.
You don't, first of all, you don't go on vacation. There's nobody to take care of the tigers other than myself.
Oh, gosh.
You can't say, "Hey, come take care of my tigers."
Yeah, would
for
you
me
tiger sit?
while we go on a cruise?
Right. I need a tiger sitter here.
Yeah.
But these tigers
So-
went home every night with you.
Yes, they did. And they started at home as well. So I had a beautiful habitat at my home.
It was great.
Right there in Vegas. And I would prepare, I'd say about 2 to 3 hours before I would leave to the theater, in going out and, of course, making sure I'd go in the morning to check on everything to make sure that the tigers were well taken care of. I could see them at all times from any point in my home as well. The habitat was right on the back side of my home. So they were always there. I was within seconds of being right next to my tigers if there was ever a challenge or need. And I would go and check on them, make sure things were good and that they were running around the habitat and everything was fine. And then I'd go in and I'd have to clean up the habitat every day. And then we would feed the tigers before the show. So they would be fed and basically take the aggression out of the tigers before we presented them. You don't want them to be hungry at all. They're
No.
you just don't want them to be
Sounds like
hungry.
a good plan.
Yeah. So, and then we would load them in the trailers, and I would drive the trailer to the theater, unload the tigers, and prepare them at the theater for show. And we'd always be at the show about 2 hours before show.
Yeah.
So
Now,
that's
a
5
lot.
hours so far.
Yeah, that's a lot. I mean, performing in like a band like I did with Ohio Express for years when we were at the same theater, we'd come in maybe an hour ahead of time, and, we know our sound check was already preset, and, you just kind of hang out until you go on stage, you get done and change clothes, and you have dinner and you go back to the room. And
No.
exactly.
No.
Way different. Way different.
No. And then we would present the shows. And after the shows, now tigers, the one thing you couldn't stop them from doing, and that is spraying.
Oh.
They would constantly mark their territories. So we would constantly have plastic tarps up on the side walls of the theater wherever the tigers were. You needed to stay your distance. That's just the best thing to say.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even know that.
And so they would spray constantly. After the show, before we could even leave the theater, we'd pull the tarps down, we'd rinse those out, and we'd take mops to the walls of the theater. And we would mop down the theater after the performance.
Okay, now this is the big star we just saw on stage. Changing into his jeans and t-shirt back here, mopping a wall.
Yep. Mopping walls and mopping floors and getting the tigers back in the trailer, secured, and then driving them home. And then once we got them home, we then had to prepare them for the evening, getting them back out of their trailers into the habitat and making sure things were secure. That took at least an extra hour, hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours just to get that settled. So you've got the performances that took you through the night. We were there probably about 5 o'clock at night, and we would leave the theater approximately 11 p.m. Our last show ended at 10. Sometimes we'd leave at midnight and then get home about 30 minutes later. I was 30 minutes from the strip with my habitat. I had to be outside the city lines to have the tigers. And the drive was beautiful. That's where I found my space was driving home at night and just contemplating my day. And then so when we got home, locked the tigers away. And by the time, before I knew it, it was 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh my gosh. And now you get to do it again the next day.
Yes.
Glamorous life, Rick.
Yeah, it's just wonderful.
Oh, it's glamorous.
Well, you had to have a dedication
Right.
to it. There is a I wouldn't say a program, but there are people out there where they call it a rent-a-cat,
Oh,
where people can get a hold of a tiger to utilize for whether it be television commercials or whatever it may be. That I understand. But as far
right.
as a performer, somebody who's working with these animals, I never felt that they had the right to stand there and have a photo taken for
Mm-mm,
promotion
mm-mm.
and PR saying, "Oh, look how cool I am because I have a tiger in front of
Right,
me,"
right.
without giving their time and life and blood and everything that goes with it in caring for these animals.
I'm with you.
So I dedicated myself, literally dedicated myself to understanding them the best we can, giving my time, my effort, and again, my life savings
Mm.
on taking care of these animals because rightfully it was my responsibility. I'm not asking for applause just for that. I'm not asking for kudos or people saying, "Oh my goodness." I'm just saying that when you do embrace something in your life, you should give it everything that you've got. It's important, and if you don't later in life, it will come back to haunt you that you didn't do what you could have in that particular
Mhm.
situation.
I just think it's really important people understand what it was to have them because so many people that I've talked to, oh, he's so lucky he had all those beautiful tigers. And I want people to understand what went into it. Now, you've said you gave your life savings multiple times, Rick. You've said that.
Yeah.
Let's equate that to dollars. What are we talking about?
It ran about $1 million to take care of the tigers and build the habitat in the back behind the house. And for many people, they might say, well, a million. But when you do that, and then on top of that, have to feed them, take
Mm-hmm.
care of them, give of your time and efforts, it is literally everything that you've got.
Mm.
To be able to dedicate your monies to this and understand that it is your responsibility. When I look at zoos, this is the reason why people charge you to come in and see the animals at a zoo.
Right.
The overhead and the responsibility to take care of these amazing creatures is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's best to leave them in the wild. I know you heard it from me, but the survival of the fittest out there in the wild, it's easier to feed them out there and let them have it to their own. Tigers eat between 10 and 15 pounds of food a day.
Oh, my God.
That's beef,
Wow.
meat, chicken, turkey, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And when you have a few tigers, that can add up to a lot. So a lot of money is spent, a lot of effort beyond that money. You can't put a price tag on giving your life to these animals for 20 years.
It's an incredible thing. And yeah, I would love all tigers. I'd love all animals that belong in the wild to belong in the wild. The bottom line is, however, if they were all in the wild, we wouldn't have any probably, as you've said before. They're being killed at crazy numbers. So at some point, the only tigers that exist may exist in zoos, which is really,
Right.
really
In the
sad.
future, that's what they anticipate.
Yeah,
They'll be
that's
in
horrible.
captivity,
Ugh,
and it will be the only way we see these animals because they can't stop the poachers from
poachers.
killing these animals.
Yeah,
They're worth about $100,000 a piece dead, maybe
dead.
even more than that now. Now I try so hard to be part of the conservation effort.
Mm-hmm.
My decision was to, of course, place them in a reserve. And we're going to get to that in just a moment. But
Right.
you noticed when you were reading the book that I actually had a habitat at the
Yeah.
Tropicana as well.
Yeah, because I did not connect with you until you were over at the Stardust, which was different. I never saw your show at the Tropicana. And again, I've got to say it, you have to get the book. You have to actually have the book because, again, I've known Rick for years. I did not know about this. And it's right on the first page of chapter 27. And wow, it is incredible. I wish I'd seen it.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, if you do have the book and you look at it, that is just the front section or
Wow.
the display where people could see the tigers. The actual habitat was actually through the back doors. The tigers would go out the back, and there was a back habitat for the tigers as well,
It's
which was
incredible.
private. That was just open for the public at certain hours of the day so they could see the tiger.
Mm-hmm. That is so gorgeous. I wish I'd seen that. And the Tropicana built that all for you.
Yes, they built it for me. They were very kind in that respect. That was paid for by the Tropicana.
How long were you at the Tropicana?
Let me ask. Oh, I know, about 10 years. 10,
Really?
11, 10, about 10 years.
Wow. How did I miss that? I don't know how I missed that. That is really, really something.
It was a big deal. It was a beautiful theater for the show.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was right before COVID hit, the month before COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
I was asked to actually return back to the Tropicana
Oh, my.
and reopen my show Mansion of Dreams
Oh,
at the
gee.
Tropicana.
Oh, gee.
And I was so excited.
Yeah.
I came out of the Trop. In fact, when I walked into the theater, they said, "Rick Thomas, when are you coming back?"
Oh,
And
my
I said, "Is that
goodness.
serious? Are you serious?" And they said, "Yes." I said, "Can your Mansion of Dreams fit on our stage?" I said, "Absolutely. I'm there." And we
Oh.
came out. We were real thrilled. COVID hit.
Ugh.
Now let's talk about what's happened to the Tropicana. So
Oh,
COVID
yeah.
hit, of course, everything closed down.
Mm-hmm.
During that time frame, contracts ceased to exist.
Right.
It was pretty much taken off the table. Tropicana changed hands.
Mm-hmm.
There were new owners that bought the Trop. And when that happens, everybody has their own dreams.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has
Yeah.
their own wishes and their desires, their wants. And when that happens, you're starting from ground zero again.
Mhm.
You know, you walk back into the Tropicana and everybody says, "Rick Thomas, who?" So at that point, they did. I stayed with my show here in Branson, which I'm still thrilled to be presenting. I am so happy. I'm fine with my life.
Okay.
Everything is really good.
I've got to put something in here right now because it fits. Entertainer of the Year?
Yes. If anybody wants to listen to this chapter more than anything, yes, go ahead. You can say it again. I'll wait.
Entertainer of the Year, Rick Thomas. I forgot about it until right this moment, and I wanted to make sure we got it in because, wow, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. We have over 100 shows here in Branson. And about a week ago, I was given the highest honor in all of Branson as far as the shows go, and that is Entertainer of the Year.
That is
So,
amazing.
and you know what's amazing too? What amazes me is I'm a magician, and most of the shows are country music, singing, and you know, I don't fit the mold. I don't fit the genre of what Branson is all about. And when you take Entertainer of the Year and you're an illusionist, that's something.
It is something. I'm proud of you.
That's a big deal.
That is fantastic.
Thank you.
So now back to our story, but it fit right there. I had to get it in there because that is such an incredible honor. But COVID destroyed
It's
a great many
everything.
things, you know, not to make little of the health impact and all the people that we lost, but it came at an inopportune time for a lot of us. I had some projects on the table that were about to explode and go crazy and be wonderful, and they all evaporated with the advent of COVID as well. I know that feeling. Yeah. But now more Tropicana, right?
Now no more Tropicana. In fact, with the changes of the guard, so to speak, they have turned around and sold off the Tropicana, and they are building the next professional baseball stadium in place of the Tropicana.
Right there on
So-
the strip.
Yeah, one of the busiest corners in all of the United States. And it's right there. And there's going to be the baseball stadium, and the Tropicana will be no longer. So if I did leave and there was no COVID, at least I would have had a good 5 years performing there before they
Well, you know,
sold it off.
it's kind of like one of those movies, you know, those kind of supernatural movies or whatever, where fate. Now, if you had gone to the Tropicana, COVID hadn't hit, you were at the Tropicana, it may never have changed hands. If it had never changed,
it may never
right?
have changed hands.
If
That's
it
right.
never
It probably
changed
would not have
hands.
changed. It would not have changed hands.
Okay. And they wouldn't have sold it for the baseball stadium. And the baseball stadium would have been put in a much more intelligent place, not adding to the traffic on the strip, because you've already got a hockey arena there on the strip.
Yeah.
You know, the strip is tough enough. I can only imagine what it's like when games are in session. Oh, my goodness.
Well, I'm telling everybody here, right now. So on your next vacation, don't go to Vegas. There's just too much trouble there. Go to Branson and see Rick
There
Thomas.
you go. The entertainer
You know,
of the year
don't
in
waste your
Branson.
time.
Yeah.
And until you go to Branson, don't say anything about it till you get here. And then when you see the show, you're going to go, wow, wow, wow. Only because of my background. I've had my show in Vegas for years. I performed across the world. And when people say, why are you in Branson? I said, because I choose to be here. I choose to be here, and it's a blast, and I'm enjoying life.
I would love to see Branson one of these days. One of these days I will. But yeah, I mean, had COVID not hit and you gone to the Trop, everything could have been different in terms of what's happening in Vegas right now. It could have. It's how fate deals the cards, as they say. Very strange.
It's very strange.
But yeah, you had 20 great years with the tigers, a lot of work, but an experience very few people in the entire universe will ever have of being with these animals. And despite all the work, it is still, to a lot of us, very enviable.
It was an extremely fulfilling part of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I am proud that we were able to find them a home, and that is Keepers of the Wild in Arizona.
Right.
You go down Route 66, just past Kingman, towards the Grand Canyon, and on your left is Keepers of the Wild. And it's in a valley, a spectacular valley, and the tigers are found there. And I deeply appreciate them taking them on as I decided to remove them from my life and find a proper facility that gave the tigers a wonderful life to live, and something beyond what I had given them in Las Vegas. So for me, it was a big deal, and I'm very proud of, again, what I've done, but also what I did by removing them from my life, and that was placing them in a proper reserve. There are places out there that you just don't want to take your animals to.
Oh, I'm sure.
And so, the right time and the right place with the animals, and I'm very grateful to that wonderful facility as Keepers of the Wild.
That was a hard decision for you, as I've said before, a phone call from you when you were in the midst of doing this, and I've never heard you emotional like that in my life. I hope never to again, because it tore my heart out, that phone call, because I knew how hard this was. They weren't pets, you said that, but they were a huge part of your life, and to give them up, oof. I've got to ask, though, what was it like after they were gone? Was it empty?
I went on vacation.
Oh, did you? Okay.
No. I'm just playing with you.
Oh, okay.
A weight was lifted off of me, the responsibility. I just sat back and realized how much of my life I had given to that cause.
Yeah.
It was lifted. And again, that's where I was grateful for my past, and people asking me now, would I do it again? No way.
Yeah.
I can't. They may want to see a tiger, but that's not worth what I have to go through to do so.
Yeah.
And they're better off where they are anyway.
And you can go visit them if you want to go to Keepers of the Wild. It's a really neat facility, and it's open to the public. You pay a small fee, and you go in, and you can just enjoy the day there and see those beautiful tigers. They're there in relaxing retirement.
Well, I can say it again, and this is the best way to end this portion of this chapter, is I was very privileged. I'm one of the privileged few who walked with the tigers, and for that, I am still extremely blessed. So I thank you again for chatting with me about that and allowing me to share just the memories of really what they have been in my life. It's amazing to think back on it. It really was a chapter that almost sometimes doesn't exist. I look at the pictures on the walls and tigers. When a tiger passed, I also had them cremated, and I have every tiger in urns at my home. And I don't want this to sound morbid, because it's not. I care for these animals. I've loved these animals. And to have 6 of them, 6 of my tigers I have with me that were not given to Keepers of the Wild, that I have a very special place in my heart that they're still with me.
A lot of people do that with their animals to keep them with them. That's totally understandable.
I really want to talk about something also that this chapter is about, and it's more so than the tigers, and that is appreciation for someone who has given you more than expected. I hate to say it, but life is usually all about the word me.
Yeah.
We're all self-preservation. We're all taking care of ourselves and what's the best for me. And there was a fine gentleman who waltzed into my life, who changed my life while I was working with the tigers, and that was giving me of his time and his efforts. And that is a gentleman named Mike Giles. And if it's okay with you, I want to share our story.
Yes, absolutely. I want to hear it, because I never met him.
Michael was without doubt one of the greatest illusionists in the world of magic. He was top of the line. And I say that because when people think of magicians or illusionists, they think of David Copperfield or, David Blaine, Chris Angel, the few. There's about 10 illusionists who are really top of the game in the industry. And Michael Giles was one such illusionist.
Wow.
And his life took a turn and he was unable to perform for a while, doing his magic, doing what he loved.
Mm-hmm.
And one day he came to me and said, Rick, and he had worked with tigers as well. He had a tiger in his show.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, Rick, my life is, his life was kind of in shambles. He needed to go a different direction for a while. And he said, would you consider having me work with you and perform with you, working with the tigers? Now you need to understand that he was a highly respected entertainer. He
Mm-hmm.
was a person that I looked up to as well, someone who had great talent and, in my humbled opinion, deserved to have his own show. When he did not have his own show, he came to me and asked if he could work for me and work with the tigers and assist me in my show. And I told him even at that time, I said, Michael, this is the hardest thing for me to do, is to accept you to work with me.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one thing, I was really lucky because he knew what he was doing, and I couldn't have asked for anybody better to work with the tigers.
Mm-hmm.
And even to this day, there was no one better than Michael and what he did and how he took care of these animals. I am I can't tell you how much I appreciate him just for the way he handled these animals.
Mm-hmm.
But it was really hard for me to still have him work with me.
Well, yeah.
I told him, I said, Michael, when there comes a time that you can walk away from this and perform your show and rightfully do what you should be doing, you do it. You don't think twice about it. You come to me and you tell me, Rick, it's time.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, that's a deal. And so at that point, I accepted his wish and worked together for years. And he was there with me when I worked my show, The Stardust.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael even toured with me on some of my tours across the world. He was with me in Korea.
Oh, wow.
And he was an amazing partner. I wouldn't say assistant. I can't use that name. He was behind the scenes. He handled the tigers. He worked with them. He cleaned them. He was just right by my side constantly. And there came a time when Michael came to me and said, Rick, thank you so much for what you've given.
Mm-hmm.
I now can start once again performing.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to create my own show again and get out there in the world. And sure enough, I was in tears. I was so happy for him.
Yeah, no kidding.
I couldn't tell you how thrilled I was that I got to let him go.
No, it makes
I really
sense. Yeah.
I was so happy. Because I even tell my dancers, my cast and my crew when they join me, I said, my dreams are not your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm part of your life, fine. But when you find something in your life that's you, that's all about you, that'll be better for you, you go do it. You go follow your dreams. Don't think about Rick Thomas another second. You go do what you need to do for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what Michael did. And he went out on the road. And for the next few years, he performed all across this world. And he presented an unbelievable show. It was just absolutely beautiful. He had a wonderful new wife and a great career. And sadly, he died from an illness just those few years later that he just couldn't, it just took over his life and took his life. And it was, of course, a devastation to the industry. But how grateful I am that Michael actually followed his dreams as well, but that I could be part of his life. And I think that the bond between us was so strong and I appreciated him so much. But I don't think until after he died, I told the world how much he was to me. While he was alive, there were thank yous and hugs and tears and, you're awesome. But my book that I wrote, this chapter is literally about Mike Giles, and it gave me a chance to write about a person in my life who deserved a lot more than just a few tears from Rick Thomas. And for people to know that there are people out there who are willing to give so much of who they are to somebody else. And I think that's what I learned. I can be pretty selfish. And
I
it'd be
think all of
about
us
Rick,
can, though.
all about
really.
Rick Thomas.
No, we all can.
But Mike Giles was one of those people that was willing and dedicated to giving his life to others. And for that, I appreciate his, he taught me and He he reprimanded me in so many ways at how I should be living my life.
Hmm.
So this is once again a thank you to Mike Giles for who he was, what he did for me in my life, and may the few words that I write about him in this book stand forever.
He sounds like an amazing guy. There's a picture of him in the chapter. He looks like he's just a lot of fun. He looks like a wonderful person.
He was a wonderful person.
Yeah, he looks like somebody
Great
I would
man.
love to know.
Happiest person you can imagine. Everybody loved him.
Mm-hmm.
He was everyone's friend. He was willing to do anything for anybody.
Wow.
I, on the other hand, was standoffish. I could be rude. I could be a challenge, but not Michael. And once again, so when he finally came to me and said, "Rick, it's time. It's time." But I remind you again, his work ethic was second to none. And I applaud him even after his passing. Thank you, Michael, for all that you gave to me in my life.
I am so glad he got to get his show back together and get out there for those final years. That's fair that he actually got to end that way. Something fair for once. I like that. That's hard, huh?
It's hard.
No. It's amazing sometimes, Rick, when you go back, you just did, and you really start thinking about somebody who's not here anymore. It can take your breath away just as if it happened yesterday. Happens to me too. And I think that is proof that your feelings are very, very real for that person when it can affect you to that point so many years later.
They are. And I think the hardest part is trying to express it.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to express it. It's very personal. The relationship that we had was, what we went through working with those tigers and the challenges we faced and oh my goodness gracious. Just the
Korea tour that we talked about in the last
Just the
episode.
Korea tour and what
God.
Michael and I had to go through with those tigers. He really was by my side there.
Mm-hmm. You both were very lucky to have gotten together at the right time, and he helped you, you helped him, and he got to get back on his feet and get out there and do his thing. And it probably wouldn't have happened had he not spent that time with you.
I will tell you that often during our relationship that he would say to me, "Rick, you've got to stop talking about, you shouldn't be working for me." And he said, "Really, Rick, this is what I need in my life right now. This is where I want to be. This is perfect for me right now. This is where I'm finding my peace. This is where I'm finding my happiness. This is good for me." And he would remind me. And, and I thought from my point of view, I would look and go, "Michael, you should be standing out in front of the people. You should be receiving the applause." And he humbly was able to step back from it and do whatever he needed to survive life. I don't want to bring up COVID again, but we have to in this scenario. When it hit, because I'm a Class A driver and I can drive semi trucks, I literally was inches away from getting into semis and just starting to drive trucks across the country and take the top hat off and walk away from the magic and start driving trucks. We didn't know. No one knew how long it would be before life got back to,
No.
So that was a decision that I had discussed and made. And people, they're saying, what, Rick, you're an illusionist. You've performed so much. You can't, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You can't take your career and now you just drive trucks.
No.
I don't see it that way. I don't just drive trucks. And I'm going to remind everybody how proud I am of the trucking industry. Everything that you have in your life, everything that you enjoy, everything that is part of your life
is trucked
in some way or form at one point has been driven by a truck. Okay. So you realize that the trucking industry, if there is no trucking industry, we have no life. If it stops, there is no life. It is the lifeblood of what we enjoy, going to the grocery store, the homes we have, everything that we have and we enjoy was moved at some point by a truck. So to be part of that industry and to realize that it's extremely important, and I love to be out on the open road and it gives me time to clear my mind. It's not that bad. It was awesome. And even today, I still get to enjoy driving the trucks when I go on tour. So even though I'm not driving a truck 24 hours, 7 days a week, about 2 months a year, if you look very closely, you're going to see Rick Thomas driving a semi down the road. And
Oh
in the
my
back
God.
behind it, he's going to have his entire show in that semi. And you better follow it to the next theater down the road.
I still can't quite picture you driving a truck, but someday maybe I'll get to see it. It takes a lot of skill. I got to give you that. And a lot of courage.
Yeah,
too.
more skill than I have.
Oh, no, apparently you do because you passed your driver's test.
Oh, I did, but I couldn't believe how much I needed to learn. When I didn't ever think I was going to go back to school.
Oh, dear.
And when I went to go get the driver's license for trucking, I went, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And what did I think? I was going to just go in and they were going to teach me how to drive a truck? No.
In one
You have to go in and learn about a truck. You have to know all the parts. You have to know your pre-trips, your post-trips. You have to know everything about what's going on with that vehicle. And that's a lot of learning.
Well, you do what you have to do. You do what you have to do. For Michael, it was a choice. For you.
That's right. For Michael, he had to do it. Thank you. Perfect.
Yeah. He knew what he needed for himself and he followed it. And fortunately, he found you and it worked. You with the truck driving, you were preparing for, well, a very different scenario that fortunately didn't happen and the world semi has gotten back to normal. I still say semi because it's not back to normal. I don't know what normal is. No.
I can say no, and I say it under my breath because I don't think that the world is normal
No.
at the moment.
No, people are calling it the
Sorry,
new normal or the next normal, and I guess that kind of is true. But you were preparing for a different world, which is smart. It was a smart move because had things not played the way that they did with the pandemic, shows may never have come back. Who knew?
I just think to close out this conversation today, that everybody needs to be a Michael in this world. I think that everybody needs to realize that we have our own dreams. We have our wishes and our wants in our life, and we're pursuing it.
Yeah.
However, in the process, you need to be willing to do whatever it takes above board to take care of your family, to have a roof over your head, whatever it may be. Don't let your dreams destroy your life. And they can. Sometimes people, when they're following their dreams and it's the only thing that they pursue, they burn a lot of bridges.
Oh, yeah.
And they hurt a lot of people.
Yep.
So just think about how sometimes you need to step back, and sometimes there should be always a plan B, and there should be always a plan C and a plan D. And when you need to step back and go, okay, my plan A isn't going so well right now, be willing to do whatever it takes.
Right.
And I hope that in your scenario that you don't think that anybody thinks any less of you for those choices.
Well, they shouldn't.
I know I don't. And I look at people around me and I look at what they have to do and how they need to survive. There's some shows in Branson that are struggling. They are struggling. You have over 100 shows in Branson, and not all of them are as successful as others. And you see those entertainers who love to be on the stage and they perform, and then at night they're driving an Uber or they're delivering pizza or whatever it may be. And I'm not downing any of that.
No.
I'm just saying I am thrilled that they're following their dreams and they're doing what they must to take care of their own.
Right.
So I applaud. I applaud all of us for getting through this thing we call life. There's the privileged few, but most of us are not. So congrats to all of you for the struggles that you're dealing with and continuing to pursue forward. And that includes you, Tammy.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Yeah, we do what we have to do. And if your dreams take a back seat for a moment or two, you try to get back to him as Michael did, and he succeeded in doing that. But you've got to do what you've got to do, and you've got to know what you need at the moment. And sometimes, like what he needed at the moment didn't make a lot of sense to you. But he knew. He knew. And sometimes you just know you need to step back from something for a little bit of time. And you know when it's right to make the move again. So you do have to kind of follow your heart a little bit. You know, I have a lot of friends who they're on a TV show or they're doing concerts or whatever. And yes, they're driving Uber at night. Yes, they are. Or they're waiting tables in Hollywood. You know, that old adage. Because they're doing what they need to do until they get that break. And for some, that break will never come, unfortunately, not because of talent, just because of fate. And at some point, they'll probably move on to a different dream once they realize that one isn't going to happen for them. But we all do what we need to do to try to get where we want to go. And as long as it's, in my mind, as long as it's above board and honest, do it. Do what you need to do.
Bravo. Thank you. Thank you for those final comments. I appreciate it.
Well, we have to talk about one more thing. So you talked about a plan B and a plan C and a plan D and a plan Z. We need to think ahead. We don't like to sometimes, but we need to think ahead. And one of the things that comes into that is money, obviously, always. It seems everything revolves around money. And that is why, and I want to bring this up, one of your plan B, C, D, I don't know how far down the line you are with your plans, is precious metals, is having precious metals in your portfolio. And it does make good sense to hedge against inflation and this crazy economy we've got going on.
Yep. And every day that goes by, more and more people are asking me. I'm not telling them. They've already heard what I've done and what I do. And my photographer, we were taking photos backstage during the show. And he says, "Hey, what's this thing about gold, Rick?"
Yeah.
I said, "Good. You're listening.
Yeah.
You're listening. Let me tell you, you should have some. I don't care how you got to do it. You need some, whether it be gold or silver, whatever it is. These are insurance policies against what you have. They will hold their worth, and you need to get some. And I am a person who can help you understand what to buy, where to buy it, how to buy it, where to store it, and how to sell it. And if you have any questions regarding gold and silver or anything that's precious in that manner, and you want those questions answered, you are to go to where?
That must be my cue. mansionofdreams.net/wealth. And when you get there, you're going to be on one of Rick's websites, so there's lots of cool stuff there. But there's a form you fill out, take you 2 seconds, and Rick will actually pick up his telephone and give you a buzz. Give you a phone call.
Will.
Yeah, he really will. With all the time he's got on his hands, he will.
All my time I have.
And talk to you about this. You don't have to be rich to get going. I guess really the key is you just have to get going. And Rick, you've been doing this a long time. You actually really do know your stuff. You're not just some pitch guy for this. You actually know your stuff. No. So you'll get some really factual and intelligent information and be able to make some intelligent decisions.
We were taught well. Before I was involved in this, someone had asked me, what do you think about gold and silver? And I said, other than knowing I should have some, I know nothing. And I was guided, I was directed, and now both myself and Tara know extremely well what we're looking for across the world when we're buying precious metals. And we give thanks to those that offered that opportunity to us, and I do the same to you. So I'm just going to answer some questions and tell you how I did it, and then you go from there. And it's just a pleasure to share that information.
Well, it's a good plan B, C, or D, or wherever you are in the alphabet. But we all need to make additional plans because, well, we never know what's going to happen tomorrow, do you?
Nope. Tell me.
I wish I had a crystal ball sometimes too. Right?
Well,
maybe.
Oh, goodness.
Thanks for joining us this week on Nothing Happens Until You Dream, starring Rick Thomas and featuring Tammy Trujillo, and is based on Rick Thomas's best-selling book, The Tiger Whisker, available on rickthomas.com. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We'd love for you to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts. And check us out on Patreon for exclusive members-only content. Stay up to date with Rick and Tammy at nothinghappensUntilYouDream.com. Remember, you must follow your dreams, not only for yourself, but for the rest of our future. We'll see you on the next episode.